like he had shared with you guys, I was born HIV positive. Growing up, I never felt like there was anything out of the ordinary about me. I never felt like there was anything special. I grew up taking my medication every day and going to the doctor, getting blood work done, and I thought that this was something that all of my classmates were doing. I thought that all the kids that I knew what this experience was like, knew what it was like to have someone looking over your care, knew what it was like to have a mom that was so interested in, your everyday life and how you took care of your health. Growing up, I didn't really think much about why I was taking these medications. I have asthma as well, so I thought that this was why I was going to the doctor and taking these medications. Being the nosy kid that I was at the dentist office, and the papers were open behind me. I read the report where it had said asthma, HIV, a plus, and the plus was circled. I didn't know anything about HIV. I hadn't really heard the word before. I didn't know that there was that stigma out there towards people living with the virus. Went home, kind of sat on it for a bit, didn't really think much about it. Finally, we started talking about, boys and girls in 5th grade, and heard the word HIV, came home and asked my mom, am I HIV positive or negative? That's when she had disclosed that I was HIV positive, that she was, and this had been why my father had passed away when I was 6 years old, because he had lived in denial about his HIV status. He didn't get to the point of getting medication to be able to, live his life like a normal person. Nowadays, people can take these medications every day. I currently take just 1 pill a day for my HIV status. So for me, it's just like being diabetic or just like having asthma. It's just, I go to the doctor, I take my medication, and I'm okay. Being a normal girl, I started middle school, met a girl who instantly became my best friend. We were probably spending almost every other day with each other after school, having sleepovers every weekend, and finally got to the point in the friendship where she had shared something personal with me about her family, and in return, I had disclosed my status. It didn't seem like she had a problem. It didn't seem that she was afraid. It honestly seemed like we were just going to go on with our friendship. A couple hours later, I went to share a drink with a friend, and he was told, don't drink after her, you're going to contract AIDS. At that moment, I knew that there were people that weren't going to be acceptive of my HIV status. That was the first time that I had ever experienced stigma. That was the first time that I ever felt like an outsider. It was the first time that I truly felt that my friends, my classmates, didn't understand what I was going through. I would go to the school counselor, and her advice to me was that I could deny I was HIV positive. This was someone I should have been able to go to for support. I should have been able to go to for some sort of help. I went on with my 7th grade year. I had a note left on my locker saying no AIDS at the school. I had a nickname, Paige, that I was referred to as, and really went from having a lot of friends to hardly having any friends at all. My grades began to drop because bullying isn't something that just affects someone when it's happening. It is something that that person will carry with them. You never know what the other person is going through. Whenever I speak to youth, to kids, or even to adults, I try to get them to really think about those things you're saying to other people. Think about, those things, those actions that you have. You never know what that other person is going through. You never know if that one little thing could be what pushes them over the edge. So start to think back about that. Think about, those things you've said to another person. Kids, middle school is a hard time already. Those little jokes, those little nicknames that you and your friends might think is funny, you never know how that other kid is going to take it. Make sure it's a nickname that they enjoy, that they like as well. My 8th grade year came along. I thought, I have 1 more year, I'll go into high school, I'll meet tons of new kids, and everyone will forget about my HIV status. I tried out for the soccer team, and at my first away game, my coach approached me and said, by the way, I heard that you have AIDS, is that true? I had told her no, because I'm HIV positive, and there is a difference between HIV and AIDS. I came home upset because she had asked me in front of other players, there were parents behind the bench, just really didn't think that that was the best time to be asking me such personal information. My mom confronted the coach a couple days later, and she went on to make a joke. She said that we could use my HIV status to our advantage, and the players on the other team would be afraid to touch me and I could score goals. At that moment, my mom told her it's not that they're afraid, it's the ignorance. It's the lack of education that there is out there for HIV and AIDS. We met up with the school administration. My infectious disease doctor came with us, and I really wanted to find a way to make it work for me to be able to go to school and live a normal life like every other kid. And my principal went on to say that she wishes I could go to school here, but she can't promise to protect me. I felt like I no longer had support. I didn't feel like there was that education or that they really were willing to talk to these kids about bullying and the effects that it really can have on another person. I withdrew from the school on September 22nd, 2008, and continued out my 8th grade year by being homeschooled. For those of you that have talked with me or have met me before, I'm a very outgoing person, so homeschooling for me was a little bit of a challenge. I love my mom to death, but having her, be my teacher every day and kind of having that every day, I wanted to be like my classmates. I wanted to go to school and play soccer and be a cheerleader and be involved in show choir. I made it my mission to let people know that my HIV status does not define me as a person. If anything, I feel like it makes me want to achieve more. It makes me want to show people that just because of this, I can achieve more than any other person that I know, and if anything, it gives me that motivation. I became a certified HIV/AIDS educator through the American Red Cross and started sharing my story to others that were impacted by HIV and AIDS, and also with the community of kids that have gone through bullying or struggle with, mental health and those kind of things. I never realized an impact that it would have, let alone other people, but let alone myself. If anything, I feel like most of the stories that I've heard, they've actually inspired me and they have helped me cope with everything that I've been through and cope with the bullying. I was really lucky that I found a high school that was supportive. They had a zero tolerance for bullying. They reassured me that this is nothing that will happen here at your high school. I was kind of secretive in the beginning about disclosing my HIV status because I didn't want the same thing to happen. I went on with my freshman year of high school, and it kind of took me almost into a deep place. I was really depressed because there was this whole side of me that I was not disclosing to my classmates. I felt like I really wasn't being the true Paige that I was. It had actually gotten to the point where I had taken sleeping pills in an attempt to commit suicide. Lucky that I was not successful. I spent a few days in the stress center learning coping skills on how to deal with disclosing my HIV status to others, on how to not let what other people say affect me, and how to healthy ways to be able to cope with this. If anything, I feel like that was just another milestone that made me want to keep speaking and keep sharing my story. I felt like if I would have succeeded, it would have been letting the bullies win. They would have gotten the good part of that, and my friends and family, they would have suffered. So it goes back to really think about bullying and the things you say, how it can affect another person. Once I got out of the stress center, I decided I want to be open about my HIV status. I want my teachers to know, I want my classmates to know. I don't want to hide this part about me. I want to share my story to not only help those infected by HIV and AIDS, but also those that are going through something else, whether it be another illness or whether just something else that they're struggling with in their life. I shared my story with my entire high school and was very surprised at the reaction that I had received from everyone at my school and the support that I had. I wanted to find another way to share my story. I wanted to find another way to reach out to peers and get into schools. I had always said, I want to write a book, never thought it was something that would actually happen. So my junior year of high school, I started writing my book with my co-writer, Allie Benjamin, and it kind of just went on a whim. We started writing, had a timeline down, and by the end of my freshman year of college, was signed with a publisher and was about ready for it to come out. And it came out in 2014, and I said, wow, this year will be 4 years. That's crazy to think about. But so, being only 23 years old, I love being able to go into schools and talk with youth. It's probably one of my favorite things that I do when it comes to education and advocating against bullying. I feel like the kids, I don't look my age, so I feel like sometimes they kind of relate to me a little bit more than
Some people that are older, and I look their age still, so I can kind of pass, and maybe some of them will listen a little more too. But for me, it's really been, just getting people to talk about the things that necessarily they aren't so comfortable talking about. I feel like HIV has become such a taboo thing that, we feel like everyone, it's not like it was back in the 80s and 90s. Nowadays, like I said, you can take one pill a day and live a happy, normal, healthy life. And, when it comes to bullying, I feel like it's something we all know it's happening. We know what's going on. It's just the matter of stepping up and being that person willing to do something about it. I've told students time and time again, I almost feel like being a bystander is as worse as being the bully, just because you know what's happening, you know it's wrong. You don't have to step into it yourself. It's something, you can go tell an adult, you can go tell a teacher, somebody, and they can kind of take care of it. I want people to realize, like I said, my HIV status does not define me as a person. Now being 23 years old, I'm currently working on starting my own organization to be able to especially reach out to those schools that can't afford to bring in a speaker or to bring in an educator. I never, like I said, really realized the inspiration that I would get from other schools, that I would get from other students that I had worked and spoke with. I currently go to a camp called Camp Kendall for those infected or affected by HIV and AIDS. My very first year as a junior counselor, I had a camper tell me, I don't want to tell my friends about my family's HIV status because I know they won't be my friend anymore. For me, being a 9-year-old little girl, and thinking back to when I found out my HIV status and to when I disclosed my HIV status, I want her to be able to go to school, to middle school at the age I was when I disclosed, and be able to tell her friends and it just be an everyday conversation. For kids who are not only just HIV, but those other chronic illnesses, especially those invisible illnesses that are out there, to be able to go to school and say, hey, I missed school yesterday because I had a doctor's appointment, and that be a normal conversation. For kids to feel comfortable in their own skin. I wish kids would embrace and express everybody for their differences rather than their similarities. I feel like lunch and everywhere else, especially middle school and high school, would be a lot safer, happier place. Might be me being my little naive self, but it's always a message I try to share with youth, and just getting people to realize that, kindness can really go a long way. And if you have a story, make sure to tell it, because you never know the impact that it could have on another person. Thank you.